Black Waitress kissed the Mafia boss to escape her toxic ex, and he said, "Now you're mine, he's not going to hurt you." Before we dive into this story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. This story is going to shake you to your core. So, smash that subscribe button because you do not want to miss what happens next. I felt him before I saw him. That prickling awareness at the back of my neck. The way my stomach dropped. The way my hands started shaking around the serving tray I was carrying. Ethan was here. I scanned the restaurant floor, praying I was wrong. The dining room was packed tonight, silk gowns, expensive suits, champagne catching the candlelight. Rich people laughing at things that weren't funny. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe my body was just trained to panic now, even when he wasn't. There. By the host stand. Watching me with that smile. That calculated, possessive smile that used to make me feel chosen and now made my skin crawl. He wasn't supposed to be here. This was my job. My space. The one place I thought was safe. I turned quickly toward the kitchen, but he was faster. He always was. Amara. His hand closed around my elbow, spinning me to face him. "Don't walk away from me. Ethan, I'm working." I kept my voice low. Professional. We were surrounded by guests. He wouldn't make a scene. He was too smart for that. "You've been ignoring my calls. Because we broke up. 4 months ago. There's nothing left to talk about." His grip tightened. Not enough to bruise where anyone could see, he was careful about that, but enough to hurt. Enough to remind me who he thought was in control. "You don't get to decide that alone," he said quietly, his smile never slipping. "We need to talk properly. Without you running away like a child. Let go of me. Not until you agree to see me. One dinner. That's all I'm asking." I tried to pull free, but his other hand caught my wrist, pinning me in place. To anyone watching, it probably looked like an intimate conversation. A couple working something out. No one would step in. No one ever did. My heart was pounding now. The tray was still in my hands, glasses rattling with my trembling. I couldn't cause a scene, I'd lose my job. But I couldn't give in either. Couldn't let him drag me back into that nightmare. Panic sharpened everything. And that's when I noticed him. A man sitting alone in the corner booth. VIP section. I'd served him earlier, he barely looked at me, just ordered whiskey neat and spent the evening on his phone. But now he was watching. Watching us with dark eyes that seemed to absorb the candlelight instead of reflecting it. He was striking in a way that made you look twice. Tall, even sitting down. Sharp cheekbones. Dark hair slicked back with precision. A tailored blue suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Tattoos crept up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar, the only sign he wasn't just another rich businessman. He looked dangerous. The kind of dangerous that made other dangerous men nervous. Our eyes met. And something in my chest clicked into place. Not logic. Instinct. I yanked out of Ethan's grip, and before he could grab me again, I walked straight to the stranger's table. "I'm so sorry I kept you waiting, baby." I said it loud enough for Ethan to hear. My voice bright. Steady. Completely fake. My manager wouldn't let me go. The stranger's eyebrow lifted. Surprise flickered across his face, there and gone. I didn't give him time to respond. Didn't give myself time to think. I leaned down and pressed my lips to his. It was supposed to be quick. Convincing enough to make Ethan leave. A desperate act, nothing more. But the moment our mouths touched, everything shifted. He was still for 1 heartbeat. 2. Then his hand came up, not to push me away, but to cup the back of my neck. His fingers slid into my hair and pulled me closer. And he kissed me back. Not polite. Not confused. He kissed me like he meant it. Like he'd been waiting for exactly this. His lips moved against mine, unhurried, controlled, thorough, and I forgot for a moment that this was fake, that Ethan was watching, that I was at work, that I didn't even know this man's name. When he finally let me go, I couldn't breathe. My lips were tingling. My whole body was warm in ways I couldn't explain. His dark eyes held mine. Unreadable. Intense. Then they shifted, looked past me to where Ethan stood frozen near the kitchen. The stranger's expression changed. Hardened into something cold. Something lethal. He rose from the booth in one fluid motion, and I realized how tall he really was. How his presence filled the space around us, pushing everything else away. "Is there a problem?" His voice was low. Smooth. An accent underneath, Italian, maybe. And beneath the calm, steel. Ethan had gone pale. "This doesn't concern you. Amara and I were just." "Amara." The stranger repeated my name slowly. Like he was tasting it. His hand found the small of my back, warm, possessive, even through my uniform. "Is that true? Do you want to continue your conversation with this man?" I shook my head. "No. I want him to leave." The stranger smiled. It wasn't kind. It was the smile of something that hunted. He looked at Ethan, and whatever Ethan saw made him step back. Then again. "You heard her," the stranger said softly. "Leave. Don't come back. And if I ever see you near her again." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Ethan turned and walked out. Not slowly. Not with his usual swagger. He practically ran. The breath I'd been holding rushed out. My whole body started shaking, adrenaline and relief crashing through me at once. "I'm sorry," I whispered, turning to face him. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do." He wouldn't leave me alone and I panicked. He studied me for a long moment. Then his hand came up, and his thumb brushed gently across my lower lip, wiping away smudged lipstick. "Don't apologize," he said. "I'm Lorenzo. Amara." I laughed weakly. "But you already know that." "I do now." His hand was still on my back. Still warm. Still claiming. "You have good instincts," he said quietly. "Coming to me. It was random. You were just there." "Nothing is random, Amara." The way he said my name, slow, deliberate, made it sound like something precious. Like a promise. "You came to me because somewhere inside, you knew I could protect you." He leaned closer. His breath warm against my ear. "And you were right." His eyes met mine. Dark. Absolute. Certain. "Now you're mine. He's not going to hurt you." I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my tiny bedroom, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, replaying that kiss over and over. The way his hand had felt in my hair. The way he'd looked at Ethan, like he was deciding whether to destroy him right there. The way he'd said my name. Like he already owned it. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was over. A strange, surreal encounter that would fade into a story I'd never tell anyone. Lorenzo was probably some wealthy businessman with a taste for drama. He'd forget about me by breakfast. I was wrong. The knock came at exactly 9 o'clock. I froze halfway through pouring coffee, my heart slamming against my ribs. Ethan. It had to be Ethan. He'd found out where I lived months ago, showed up twice before I changed the locks. Another knock. Calm. Unhurried. Nothing like Ethan's frantic pounding. I set down the coffee pot and walked to the door on legs that didn't feel steady. Looked through the peephole. Lorenzo. He stood in my narrow hallway like he'd stepped out of another world. Same tailored suit, this one charcoal gray. Same dangerous elegance. Same dark eyes that seemed to see straight through walls. I opened the door before I could talk myself out of it. How do you know where I live? He didn't even blink. I know everything about you, Amara. Your address. Your schedule. Your history with Ethan Crow. He paused. The 3 times he violated your restraining order without consequences. My stomach dropped. You investigated me. I protect what's mine. That requires information. I'm not yours. Last night was. Last night, you kissed me. He stepped closer, and I stepped back without thinking, letting him into my apartment. He moved like he belonged there. Like he belonged everywhere. You chose me. You asked for my protection. I'm offering it. I was desperate. I didn't mean. You meant every bit of it. His eyes held mine, steady and certain. Somewhere inside, you knew exactly what you were doing. You saw something in me that could keep you safe. You were right. I should have told him to leave. Should have threatened to call the police, though something told me that would be laughably ineffective against a man like him. Instead, I asked, what happened to Ethan? Lorenzo's expression didn't change. He won't bother you again. What does that mean? It means I handled it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, showing me a photo that made my breath catch. Ethan. Bruised. Bloodied. Terror in his eyes. I should have been horrified. Should have felt sick. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in 4 months. Safe. I'm offering you a choice, Lorenzo said quietly, pocketing the phone. Come with me. Let me protect you, provide for you, keep you safe from every man who's ever made you afraid. Or stay here, alone, waiting for the next threat I'm not there to stop. And what do you want in return? You. Simple. Absolute. Your trust. Your presence. Your devotion. That's insane. I don't even know you. Then have dinner with me tonight. His hand came up, tucking a stray lock behind my ear with terrifying gentleness. Let me show you who I am. Let me prove you made the right choice when you chose me. Every rational thought screamed at me to refuse. But rationality had never kept me safe. Restraining orders hadn't kept me safe. The police hadn't kept me safe. Maybe a monster could. One dinner, I whispered. Lorenzo smiled, slow, satisfied, predatory. I'll pick you up at 7. The penthouse took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marble floors that gleamed like water. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. The elevator opened directly into the living space. No hallway, no neighbors, just this sprawling kingdom in the sky. I stood in the center of it, clutching the single duffel bag that held everything I owned, and felt impossibly small. This is your home now, Lorenzo said behind me. His hand found the small of my back, warm and steady. Everything here is yours. One dinner had turned into 3. 3 dinners had turned into a week of phone calls, of Lorenzo's security team parked outside my building, of feeling watched but not hunted for the first time in months. Then the second photo arrived. Ethan again. Worse this time. A message attached, he tried to find your new work schedule. He won't try again. That night, I packed my bag. The closet is through there, Lorenzo said now, guiding me down a hallway wider than my entire apartment. I had some things brought in until you can tell me your preferences. He opened the double doors, and I stopped breathing. Dresses. Blouses. Gowns in every color. Shoes lined up like soldiers on custom shelving. Tags still attached to silk and cashmere that probably cost more than a year of my waitressing tips. You did this overnight? I have resources. I ran my fingers along an emerald green dress, soft as water. I can't accept this. I can't afford to pay you back. You're not paying me back. Lorenzo turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my shoulders. You're not a transaction, Amara. You're mine. I take care of what's mine. That word again. Mine. It should have made me run. Instead, it made something warm bloom in my chest. The rules came out over the next few days. Gentle but firm. Non-negotiable. I couldn't leave the building without telling him where I was going. Security needed to know my location at all times. For my protection, he explained, and after Ethan, I couldn't argue the logic. I couldn't go back to work. I won't have you in an environment I can't control, he said. Not when there are people who might use you to get to me. My world shrank to the penthouse, the private gym, the rooftop garden. Always with guards hovering at a discreet distance. Always watched. It should have felt like a prison. But that first night, lying in sheets softer than anything I'd ever touched, I realized something strange. I wasn't checking the locks. Wasn't jolting awake at every sound. Wasn't sleeping with my phone clutched in my hand, thumb hovering over 911. For the first time in 4 months, I slept through the night. I woke to sunlight streaming through automated blinds and the smell of fresh coffee on the nightstand. Lorenzo was already gone, business, always business, but a note sat beside the cup. You're safe now. I promise. A golden cage was still a cage. But God, it was beautiful. And quiet. And safe. Maybe that was enough. 2 weeks in, I started to find a rhythm. Mornings meant coffee on the terrace, watching the city wake up beneath me. Afternoons meant books from Lorenzo's library, leather chairs, walls of first editions, the smell of old paper and money. Evenings meant him. Dinner together, his hand finding mine across the table, his eyes tracking my every movement like I might disappear if he looked away. It was strange. Surreal. Like living inside someone else's dream. I was reading in the library when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Amara Belrose. A woman's voice. Cool. Professional. A hint of an accent underneath. Who is this? My name is Valentina Corsetti. I'm a business associate of Lorenzo's. And a friend, of sorts. A pause. He talks about you constantly. It's unlike him. I set down my book, suddenly alert. What do you want? To give you information. What you do with it is your choice. I heard the click of heels, like she was pacing. You think you know what Lorenzo is. You don't. You've seen the penthouse, the clothes, the protection. You haven't seen the rest. I know he's dangerous. Valentina laughed. A sound like shattering glass. Dangerous is a child's word for what he is. Lorenzo De Luca has built an empire on blood. He's destroyed families. Ended bloodlines. Men who crossed him have simply vanished. Another pause. And you've made him vulnerable in a way I've never seen. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? I mean he's different since you. More focused, yes. But also more exposed. He cares about you, Amara. Deeply. And in our world, caring is a weakness enemies exploit. Why are you telling me this? Because I like Lorenzo. I don't want to see him destroyed. Her voice sharpened. You have power over him now. More than you realize. Use it wisely, or don't use it at all. Men like him don't recover from betrayal by those they love. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, Valentina's words circling in my head. Men like him don't recover from betrayal by those they love. Was that what this was? Love? Lorenzo came home late that night. I heard the elevator, heard his footsteps, slower than usual, heavier. He found me in the living room. I took one look at him and my heart clenched. Exhaustion lined his face. His tie was loosened, his jacket discarded somewhere. And his knuckles were split and bruised, dried blood cracking in the creases. Lorenzo. What happened? Nothing you need to worry about. But his voice was rough. Hollow. He crossed the room and pulled me against him, burying his face in my hair. I felt his chest rise and fall, felt the tension slowly drain from his body as he held me. Just let me hold you, he whispered. Please. So I did. And I pretended not to notice that he smelled like copper and smoke. I need to show you something. Lorenzo said it over breakfast, 3 days after he'd come home with blood on his hands. His voice was calm, but his eyes held something I hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. Maybe even fear. What kind of something? The truth. He set down his coffee, his gaze locking onto mine. About who I am. What I do. You deserve to know before this goes any further. An hour later, we were driving through parts of the city I'd never seen. Industrial. Empty. The kind of place where streetlights flickered and buildings stood hollow like abandoned bones. We pulled up to a warehouse. Lorenzo's men were already there, opening doors, standing guard with expressions carved from stone. Inside, the space had been converted into something between a fortress and a nightmare. Security monitors lined one wall. Armed men stood at every exit. And in the center, tied to a chair, sat a man I didn't recognize. His face was swollen. Blood dripped from his nose, pooling on the concrete below. One eye was completely shut. When he saw Lorenzo, pure terror flooded his features. This is Marco Benedetti, Lorenzo said quietly, his hand resting on my lower back. He sold information about my operations to a rival family. Information that got 3 of my men killed. Good men. Men with families. My stomach turned. Lorenzo. You need to see this. His voice was gentle but firm. You need to understand who I am when I'm not with you. He walked toward Marco, and I watched the man I'd kissed, the man who held me so tenderly at night, transform into something else entirely. Lorenzo didn't yell. Didn't lose control. He simply asked questions in that low, steady voice, and when Marco hesitated, the consequences were swift and brutal. A strike to the ribs. Pressure on broken fingers. Methodical. Efficient. Terrifying. Marco broke within minutes, sobbing out names, dates, transactions. Everything Lorenzo needed. When it was done, Lorenzo made a phone call. 3 words in Italian I didn't understand. Then he walked me outside. The cool night air hit my face as I leaned against the warehouse wall, breathing hard. Behind me, I heard sounds I tried not to interpret. A muffled cry. Then silence. Lorenzo stood beside me, waiting. His expression was unreadable, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. The fear that I'd run. I'm sorry you had to see that, he said finally. Are you? I looked at him. Really looked. Sorry for what you did. Or sorry I witnessed it. Sorry you witnessed it. No hesitation. I'm not sorry for protecting my people. For protecting you. He deserved it. I should have been horrified. Should have felt disgust, revulsion, the desperate need to escape. But all I felt was the strange, terrible safety of standing next to something that would destroy anyone who threatened me. "You're a monster," I whispered. His jaw tightened. He started to pull away. I grabbed his hand, the one with bruised, bloody knuckles, and held it tight. "But you're my monster. And I'm not afraid." The gown was emerald green. Floor-length silk that clung to every curve and made my dark skin glow like I'd been dipped in moonlight. Diamonds sparkled at my throat and wrists, pieces Lorenzo had presented that afternoon with the casual air of a man handing over spare change. "You're stunning," he said, watching me in the mirror as his stylist finished my hair. I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back looked like she belonged in magazines, on red carpets, in worlds I'd only ever served drinks to. "I don't know if I can do this." "You can." Lorenzo appeared behind me, his hands settling on my bare shoulders. "And you won't be alone. I'll be right beside you the entire night." The gala was held at the city's art museum, ironic, given what I now knew about some of Lorenzo's business ventures. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors. Champagne flowed like water. The city's elite floated through the space in silk and diamonds, their laughter sharp and performative. And every single one of them turned to stare when we walked in. I felt the weight of their gazes immediately. The way eyes traveled over my skin, my hair, my dress. The whispers that started before we'd taken 10 steps. "Who is she? Where did he find her? Is that the waitress from?" Lorenzo's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer. "Let them look," he murmured against my ear. "Let them see exactly who you are to me." He introduced me to senators, CEOs, socialites whose names I'd only seen in tabloids. Each interaction was carefully choreographed, his touch never leaving my body, his attention constantly returning to me even mid-conversation. I was being displayed. Claimed. And despite everything, I didn't hate it. "You're handling this better than I expected." I turned to find Valentina behind me, stunning in a white gown that made her look like a blade wrapped in silk. "Should I take that as a compliment?" "Take it however you want." She studied me with those sharp eyes, and I saw something new there. Respect, maybe. Grudging, but real. "He's been different since you." More focused. More strategic. But also more dangerous. "You said that before. That I make him vulnerable." "I said caring makes him vulnerable." "That's still true." Valentina's gaze drifted across the room to where Lorenzo was speaking with the mayor. "But vulnerable isn't always weak. Sometimes it's fuel. He has something to fight for now. Something to protect at all costs." She looked back at me. "That makes him the most dangerous version of himself." Before I could respond, Lorenzo appeared at my side, his hand finding its familiar place on my waist. "Valentina. Are you terrorizing my girlfriend?" "Just getting to know her." She smiled, almost warm. "Keep her safe, Lorenzo. She's good for you." "I know." His arm tightened around me. "That's why I'd burn this entire city down before I let anyone hurt her." He said it casually. But I knew he meant every word. It happened so fast. One moment I was standing near the bar, waiting for Lorenzo to finish a conversation with a city councilman. The next, a server was rushing toward me, knocking the champagne flute from my hand before it reached my lips. Glass shattered against the marble floor. Champagne splashed across my gown. The room went silent. "Don't drink that," the server gasped. A young woman, barely 20, her eyes wide with fear. I saw him, the waiter, he put something in it. I saw him. Everything after that became a blur of motion. Lorenzo was at my side in seconds, his hand gripping my arm, his eyes scanning the room with predatory focus. Security materialized from nowhere, forming a wall around us. Guests stumbled back, confused, alarmed, champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. "Lock it down," Lorenzo said quietly. But there was murder in his voice. "Every exit. No one leaves until I find out who did this." Within minutes, the elegant gala transformed into something else entirely. Security flooded the building, politely but firmly informing guests there had been a threat. The mayor looked furious until Lorenzo spoke to him privately, then he simply looked pale. I was whisked to a private room, a female guard checking me over thoroughly, asking if I'd ingested anything, if I felt dizzy, if my vision was blurred. I couldn't answer. Couldn't think. My whole body was shaking. Lorenzo appeared every few minutes, his eyes wild with barely controlled rage, touching my face, my hands, like he needed to confirm I was real and unharmed. "We found him," he said finally, crouching in front of me. His voice was ice. "A waiter. Paid by the Mancini family." The name meant nothing to me. But the look on Lorenzo's face told me everything. What were they going to do? Sedate you. Take you. His jaw clenched so tight I heard his teeth grind. Use you to get to me. The room tilted. I gripped the armrest to steady myself. "Lorenzo. I almost lost you tonight." The words came out cracked. Broken. If that server hadn't seen, if they'd succeeded in taking you. But they didn't. This time. He took my hands, his grip almost painful. "There will be others, Amara. As long as you're with me, there will always be people who try to use you as leverage." I saw it then. The depth of his fury. The cold, absolute rage of a man who'd almost lost the only thing he valued. "What are you going to do?" He stood, and the softness drained from his face, leaving only the monster I'd accepted in that warehouse. "I'm sending you home. Full security team. You don't leave the penthouse until I come for you. And you?" His eyes met mine. Dark. Lethal. Certain. "Let me do what I need to do to make sure this never happens again." He kissed my forehead. Gentle. Final. Then he was gone. The estate was beautiful. And isolated. Surrounded by walls and security, tucked away in countryside I didn't know existed an hour from the city. Lorenzo moved me there the night of the gala, his hand never leaving mine during the drive, his eyes checking the mirrors every few seconds like he expected enemies to materialize from the darkness. "Stay here," he said, cupping my face in the foyer of a house bigger than any building I'd ever lived in. "Stay safe. Let me handle this." Then he was gone. The first week was torture. Lorenzo came home at dawn most mornings, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. His knuckles were perpetually split, his shirt sometimes stained with things I tried not to look at too closely. He'd find me waiting, I couldn't sleep until I knew he was alive, and pull me into his arms without a word. We'd go to bed tangled together. I'd wake to find him already gone. I stopped asking questions after day 4. What could he tell me that I didn't already know? He was at war. People were dying. And every death was a brick in the wall he was building around me. The second week, I stopped pretending I wasn't complicit. I became his refuge instead. When he came home shaking with adrenaline and rage, I held him. When he couldn't sleep, haunted by whatever he'd done, I ran my fingers through his hair until his breathing steadied. When he looked at me with that desperate hunger, like I was the only thing keeping him human, I kissed him until he forgot everything else. This was what loving him meant. Not just the penthouse and the diamonds. This. The blood. The violence. The knowledge that men were being destroyed in my name. I should have felt horror. Guilt. Something. Instead, I felt only a fierce, terrible gratitude. Day 15. Day 18. Day 20. The security team kept me informed in fragments. The Mancinis were falling. Their operations dismantled. Their allies scattered. Lorenzo was systematic, ruthless, thorough. On day 21, he came home different. Still exhausted. Still carrying the weight of everything he'd done. But something in his posture had shifted. There was finality in his eyes. Completion. I was waiting in the living room when he walked in. Dawn light streamed through the windows, catching the shadows under his eyes, the dried blood on his collar. "It's over," he said simply. I stood slowly, not quite believing. Over. The Mancinis are finished. He crossed the room and pulled me against him, his face buried in my hair. Every single one who posed a threat is gone. The others have fled or surrendered. The message has been sent. What message? He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face with impossible gentleness. That no one touches what's mine and lives to try again. His forehead pressed against mine. No one will threaten you again, Amara. I promise. I want to show you something. Lorenzo said it a week after the war ended, when the bruises on his knuckles had finally healed and the shadows under his eyes had begun to fade. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, vulnerable, almost nervous. The last time you said that, you took me to a warehouse. A ghost of a smile. This is different. I promise. We drove through the city, past the gleaming towers of downtown, past the neighborhoods I recognized, into streets that grew narrower and older. The buildings here were worn but clean. Flower boxes hung from fire escapes. Children played on sidewalks while their mothers watched from stoops. Lorenzo parked on a quiet corner, and as we walked, something shifted. People noticed him. But not with fear. An old man waved from a barbershop doorway. A woman sweeping her steps called out a greeting in Italian. Children ran up to him, chattering and laughing, and I watched in astonishment as Lorenzo, cold, lethal Lorenzo, crouched down and listened to their stories with genuine attention. "This is where I grew up," he said as we walked. "After my parents died, these people raised me. Fed me. Protected me when I was too small to protect myself." He showed me a community center with his name on a brass plaque by the door. A park where teenagers played basketball on courts he'd paid to restore. A clinic offering free services to anyone who needed them. "This is also who I am," he said quietly. "Not just the violence. This." An elderly woman approached us, her face creased with decades of smiles. She grabbed Lorenzo's hands and spoke rapidly in Italian, tears glistening in her eyes. Then she turned to me, cupped my face in her weathered palms, and said something I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. "What did she say?" I asked as she walked away, dabbing at her eyes. "She blessed our union. Said she's been waiting 30 years to see me find someone who makes me smile like my father used to smile at my mother." My heart clenched. We had dinner at a tiny restaurant that smelled like garlic and tomatoes and home. The owner, a barrel-chested man named Giuseppe, embraced Lorenzo like a son and seated us at a corner table covered in checkered cloth. "You're the one," Giuseppe said to me, his accent thick. "The one who changed him." "I don't know if I changed him." "You did." He leaned closer, his wise old eyes holding mine. "He is not perfect. He has done dark things. But always, always, for reason. To protect. To provide. Never for cruelty alone." He patted my hand. "You give him something to come home to. That is everything." Watching Lorenzo laugh with Giuseppe, relaxed in a way I'd never seen, I finally understood. He wasn't just a monster. He was a man who'd built an empire to protect the people who'd once protected him. And now I was one of them. He took me back to where it all began. The restaurant was dark when we arrived, closed for a private evening. Lorenzo guided me through the entrance with his hand on my back, that familiar warmth that had become my anchor over the past year. Then he opened the doors to the dining room, and I stopped breathing. Roses. Thousands of them. Deep red blooms filling every surface, their petals scattered across the floor like a crimson carpet. Candles flickered on every table, casting the room in soft, golden light. And there, in the corner booth where I'd first kissed him, where everything had changed. A single spotlight illuminated a table covered in more roses than I could count. "Lorenzo," I whispered. "What is this?" He led me to the booth, his expression soft in a way I'd only ever seen when we were alone. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a velvet box. My heart stopped. He lowered himself to one knee, right there in the spot where I'd grabbed a stranger in desperation and found my forever instead. "Amara." His voice was rough with emotion. "From the moment you chose me. Terrified and brave and so beautiful it hurt to look at you, I knew my life would never be the same. You've seen my darkness and stayed. You've held me when I didn't deserve to be held. You've made me want to be better while accepting everything I am." He opened the box. The ring inside caught the candlelight and exploded into 1,000 fractured rainbows. Emerald-cut diamond. Flawless. Enormous. Worth more than buildings. "Marry me," he said. "Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice that night." I was crying before he finished. Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes. We married 2 months later at the estate, surrounded by gardens in full bloom and a handful of people who truly mattered. Valentina stood witness, dabbing at eyes she'd never admit were wet. Giuseppe wept openly and blessed us in Italian. Lorenzo cried when he said his vows. This powerful, terrifying man. Tears streaming down his face as he promised to love me fiercely, protect me absolutely, and devote every breath to my happiness. 6 months after that, on a rainy autumn morning, our daughter came into the world. Isabel. She was tiny and perfect, with her father's dark eyes and my brown skin, screaming with healthy lungs that filled the delivery room with beautiful, chaotic life. Lorenzo held her like she was made of glass, tears falling freely onto her blanket. "Thank you," he whispered, looking at me with more love than I'd ever known existed. "For choosing me. For staying. For giving me everything I never thought I'd have." Watching him cradle our daughter, I finally understood what I'd chosen that desperate night in the restaurant. Not perfection. Devotion. Not safety through invisibility. Protection through absolute, consuming love. Being loved by Lorenzo De Luca meant never being invisible again. And I wouldn't change a single moment. 2 hearts. If you've ever felt invisible and dreamed of someone who would move mountains just to protect your heart, type "mine forever" in the comments. Let's see how many of us believe in love that fights for you. 2 hearts. They begin when someone finally sees you, and refuses to ever let you disappear again. Sparkles. Please subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story.